Hello, girls. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Roots of Refuge Farm. I'm over here. We moved the sheep. There's the house. Woods. They were over on the other side of the pond, but we brought them over here. This fence stretches across, but there's an opening so they can go down into that area and be in the shade when the sun's up at the highest. These are my two original ewes, this one and this one, Tilly and Ramona, and then the 3 ewe lambs that they had this spring. Those back there are the 4 ewes that I bought over winter, and they are all just very nearly about to lamb. Hey, girl. They'd been in with the ram for a while when I got them, but they must not have been cycling because we were like anticipating them lambing back in January. And then when we realized it wasn't going to happen, we put them back in with the ram. And that was, they should be due like in sometime within the next month. I mean, like it could be at any point. I think early August is the earliest point, like if they got bred right when we put them in with him, but they were in with him for a couple of months, so they're definitely like bagging up. One of them particularly, she's like very, very full, and so we're just watching. With sheep, it's very hands-off. I mean, in most cases it's not necessary to intervene. And these girls have had babies before, so mostly it's just exciting. I'm not like nervous or anything. I'm coming and checking on them every day because I'm excited. Let's go over here. I want to show y'all something. I can't take too long or else my goats will be fussing at me when I get back because I have to milk them, but I need to show you this. So this overgrown little patch here, which doesn't look like much, is where the pigs were in the previous season. And because of that, I don't know if you noticed the little pumpkins here. There is food growing all in this area. And I noticed that there were pumpkins out here as they were starting to get ripe. And I haven't come out to try to collect any of them because, I mean, we have tons of pumpkins that we actually planted. So they've busted in here. Oh, that's a watermelon right there. There's a busted pumpkin. There's several busted pumpkins in here, which means that we're probably going to have pumpkins here, I mean, maybe until the end of time. That's a cucamelon growing all over the place. So probably what we'll do is let this keep going for a while, and then later on in the season, move the pigs back into this area so they can have a little smorgasbord and enjoy the fruit of their labor. And by their labor, I mean their poop. They pooped this garden. This is why, and if you've been here, you've heard me say this. I think I wrote it in my book too. Volunteer food. Ooh, camera's trying to get away from me. Volunteer plants are so encouraging to me. Like when I first started gardening, I overthought everything. I was just completely crippled by analysis paralysis. And I just felt like I was going to do something wrong and mess it up. And when things went wrong, I would feel so devastated, like, oh my goodness. I remember one year I didn't prune my tomatoes and I grew them way too close together, and by like the end of June I had to rip out most of my plants because they got blight so bad, and I was so disappointed and devastated, and I'm like, all that work for nothing, and I'm hardly getting any tomatoes this year. The beautiful thing that I learned is, you know, there's always next year. You know, take some cuttings, root some suckers, try again for the fall. Like, if you were harvesting the lesson, it's fine, but if you're thinking somehow that gardening is defeating you, you'll give up. And volunteer food like this was the aha thing for me that made me realize, like, I don't have to give up. This stuff wants to grow. If my pigs can grow a garden with their poop, surely I can grow one with my best efforts. And even in the case of this, I mean, like, I could have come out here, I'd needed some boots on, but get out here and just collect as much of this food as I could. As it is, I'm kind of fine with letting it just like rot here and keep replanting, because those pumpkin seeds are going to end up all over the place. And that's that local heirloom, that Dutch fork pie pumpkin that we're growing, and it's extremely resilient in this area. And I wouldn't be surprised with this pumpkin patch, this pig poop pumpkin patch, and with these pumpkins rotting here and all the wildlife that has access to it, I wouldn't be surprised if we're not finding Dutch fork pie pumpkins growing all over all of our land, our neighbor's land that we use. Like, very well could just grow all over the place. And then we have wild food long term, which is another layer of resilience, which is awesome. If nothing else, this is just very cool and encouraging. Food wants to grow. You can be a gardener. This is also kind of exciting. Y'all know what this is? This is elderberry. I think they're about ready. Yep. I actually need to go grab a little colander or basket or something and come pick these already. The birds have gotten quite a few of them. I've been watching them since this plant bloomed. I always try to keep an eye out for where they are when they're blooming. Elderberry grows wild all over the place. Oh, look. Those are eggs. I don't know what would have laid those right here. That's interesting. There's 4 eggs. There's ants all over them, so they're probably rotten. No, 5 eggs. It's definitely an intentional clutch from something. I showed it to Will. He said maybe it's the turkeys. They're definitely too big to be chicken eggs. I don't want to fool with them too much because I don't want them to bust if they're rotten. Yeah, those may be turkey eggs. I don't know what else would have had access to get over here. Will just told me that the chanterelles have been out like crazy. He's been foraging them the last week or so. We've had a lot of rain, but that's exciting. I think we're gonna go out there in the morning and see if we can harvest some. He sent me a picture the other day of like one of those aluminum pans just completely full, and I'm like, dude, you are mushroom rich. Those things are expensive to buy. I love that whenever you get like free food that you find, but it's like expensive food. I'm always just like, I just imagine that I just wandered across like $100 bill in the woods, because that's what it feels like to me.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, Ben.
What are you doing?
What do you think I'm doing?
Milking?
Yep.
Okay.
See ya. Hello, goats. Hello, Freya. Oh my goodness, does nobody ever milk you? Go on. Okay, Goofy, let me go get the water. So my last video was a pretty heavy one, talking about death and recent events. And honestly, I sometimes have a little bit of a hard time coming back after content like that, just because it's so like heart-bearing. And then I don't know, I have a hard time just like turning the camera on right after and just being like la-di-da. I don't know. It's been a few days. I'm still maybe a touch like heavy, but that's okay. You know, like, I don't feel like there's a lot that I need to process. I think mostly it's just all the heavy stuff combined with, this is the time of year that I kind of want to quit everything every year. End of July, when it's 8 jillion degrees outside, and it doesn't matter how much you work, you always feel behind. I want to quit homesteading and gardening every end of July, and have, like, pretty much the entire time that we've been doing this. So there is a phrase that gets said around here frequently, and I think that it applies in seasons exactly like this one. For me, it's been just heavy stuff combined with the heavy workload, combined with being spread really thin, major life events, you know, my kids getting ready to move out, go to college, and things like that. You know, it's just a lot. When you're dealing with a lot, you just got to let the low end drag. Come on. Come on. Go ahead. So letting the low end drag is the art form of surrender when it's all too much. One time I was speaking, I was doing a public speaking event, and there was some time left in the end. We did a Q&A. I can't remember the exact wording, it's been a few years ago, but it was something along the lines of, how do you manage so much and not let things fall through the cracks? And I said, lots of things fall through the cracks. That's the trick, you just have to make sure it's not the important things. I've also heard someone say before, you know, if you're juggling a lot, some balls are glass and some balls are plastic. You just make sure you don't drop the glass ones. And that's kind of the idea of letting the low end drag. When it's the end of July and the weeds are growing a lot faster than you have the capacity to stay on top of them, the harvest is coming in really heavy. If you are at the place of overwhelm, if it's really, really hot and you're struggling, I mean, like, we want to push through. We want to be effective. We want to be good stewards. But sometimes there are just realities. Maybe you bit off more than you could chew. Like, don't mean you gotta choke on it. Spit it out, honey. Like, it's fine. Like, it is absolutely okay sometimes to say, I can't do all this. Let the low end drag. Like, figure out strategically where you can have slack and let it be there. This has been the first summer in 7 years that I have not incredibly consistently made videos. You know, I took a few weeks off back in May. There have been multiple times that I'm like, I got nothing, you know, like, because I recognized going into this summer just how dang fast my kids are growing up. And I came into this summer with this fierce determination that I was just going to spend every single possible moment I could with my babies. Do the things I have to do, but enjoy their company. And that if there was an end dragon, it was not going to be them. And it's been fine. It's been fine. You know, they'll go back to school. I'll have lots of time to make content. I'll get a lot of things done. I have not preserved as much in my garden as I normally do this year also, which has actually led to some interesting thought processes. This dishwasher keeps beeping. So, you know, I love canning, preserving, growing the massive garden and putting up a ton of food. I really like doing that. But I always end up with excess that I don't really know what to do with. It's like, okay, I have enough pickles. What do I do now? Like, I always have that kind of situation. And one of the things I'm really realizing, and this is kind of new to being in South Carolina. Now, I grew a lot of food year-round in Arkansas. It was a little more of a gamble because Arkansas is more prone to very cold snaps in the winter than South Carolina is. This is zone 8 and Arkansas zone 7, so it just gets roughly 10 degrees colder on the extremes there. But that's enough to make a big difference when you're growing food. But it kind of occurred to me, I was talking to Maya the other day, I said, you want to know what I really love? And I've said this, but I don't know that I've like accommodated it in my garden. I really love just eating fresh out of the garden. I love growing food seasonally and eating it seasonally. Like, I'm fine not having tomatoes. Now, I need canned tomatoes because I make chili and use all that stuff. So there are some things that I still want to... I dropped my pail and the lid came off. We got to go wash it. I'm not trying to introduce any lovely bacterias into my raw milk. It just kind of occurred to me the other day, like, you know, I don't have to grow this much food. I don't have to grow so much that I'm giving a ton away. I could focus more on growing seasonally and really just for the time being that these summers are so busy with the kids, really just focusing on putting up what I absolutely know we'll use and just kind of letting the low end drag on the rest for the time being. Really, when it comes to like a prepping standpoint, like being prepared for emergencies, there's like a certain amount of food that you want to have on hand. For me, a lot of that is the staples, like the rice, the beans, all of the, you know, having fats, oils, and different things like that stored. I like having shelf-stable meat, canned meat, and stuff like that. Like, I like having an array of food if there were an emergency so that I'm prepared. The garden is awesome because I like eating out of the garden as much as possible, but living in such a moderate place, I can eat out of the garden seasonally. Now, it's not really the best as far as being prepared because obviously things can happen to mess with your garden. So I wouldn't want to put like all my eggs in that basket, but it is a basket with eggs in it that has to be considered. And I told Maya, I was like, I might shift a little bit in the garden and really gear towards just eating seasonally throughout the year and preserving only like the basic staples that I know we're going to use. Also, that may just be me verbally processing, and I may end up continuing to grow exactly how I am now and doing exactly what I do now. That's also a possibility. When I'm juggling, I'm figuring out what to drop this week is not really the best time for me to make long-term decisions. I just finished up with Claire. I forgot to set the camera up to show getting her on this tangent. So I'm trying to decide what to do with my goats for breeding. Goat gestation is like 150 to 155 days. I can't remember exactly what it is. It's about 5 months, more or less. When you have a dairy animal, you can milk them for a very long time without rebreeding if you just want milk. Obviously, if you rebreed them, you get more kids. And that can be used to grow your herd if you want more goats, or you can sell the kids to make money to help offset the cost of the goats. So that's kind of my plan, is to just breed them and sell the kids. Goats have, on average, between 1 and 3 babies each. They can have more than that. Full-size goats like my Nubians, 1 to 3 is what's normal. But if you're going to rebreed them, you have to dry them off like 2 months before they kid, because you want to give them a chance. You don't want to run them ragged. I mean, like, it's just good care for them. It allows them to kind of regain their body condition, grow their babies in a way that's not just terribly depleting to them. So I'm thinking what I would like to do is aim for the kids to be born in January. Now, for some people, they're like, why would you do that? Why would you want your kids born in the winter during the coldest time? It doesn't get super cold here. So even if it is, let's see, it can get cold, don't get me wrong. I mean, like, it can get well below freezing. It can get into a hard freeze. I remember whenever Helen had her first baby on the farm, she had her baby during the coldest night of the year, and it was 24 Fahrenheit, which is like, I don't know, -3 Celsius or something like that. No, that's not right. It's -5 Celsius. But actually, if you live in a really warm place, and if it gets warm early in the spring, and it does here, it's actually a little bit healthier, in my opinion. Everybody's gonna have their opinions. In my experience of keeping goats in warm places, I have healthier outcomes when the babies are born in the winter instead of when it's hot, because when it's hot, the flies are back. You may have noticed. I mean, they're everywhere. The parasites are higher, you know, when you get into the warmer weather, the wet weather of the spring. And so by having the babies born in like January, February, there is the inconvenience of babies being born at that time. However, I don't typically travel in January, February, so I'll be here. We do have a barn that we can close up and provide some warmth to the babies. But with that said, I had baby goats born like right before the coldest cold snap we ever had in Arkansas, where it was like -12 Fahrenheit, like -20 something Celsius. I mean, it was very cold, and the goats were fine. Animals can handle colder weather than we Southerners think. I mean, people are keeping these animals in places that it's significantly colder than this. So with that being the case, if I'm aiming for late January kidding, the reason I would want to do that is because I could stop milking like right before the holidays. I could go ahead and dry them off like leading up to Thanksgiving, and then during that really busy time with the family and with the home, I would not need to be doing this. Now, it does bring me back into needing to milk when it's very cold outside, but it's really a short window. It would be like maybe a month or something like that, because you don't start separating the kids to milk until they're a couple weeks old. So if we were kidding in like late January, early February, I wouldn't be separating and having to milk until end of February, and then it starts warming up pretty decently here by March. So that's what I'm aiming for, which means I need to be planning on putting them in with WIT by like middle to late September. That's right, maybe even like early September, because they cycle every 3 weeks. And I'm kind of thinking, because I want to keep milking them even after they're bred for at least a couple of months. Oh, I was saying, I didn't finish my other thought. I freeze-dried some milk. I was going to freeze-dry a little bit more and just have that to be able to use it in my coffee. That's the main thing that I'm going to be like, really miss the goat's milk on, is having it for my coffee. I don't know. I've always followed the rule that like if you put your dairy does in with a buck and rut, it makes their milk taste kind of goaty. I've been told that. And so I've always followed the rule. I've never really tried it. I've never tried to like keep goats that I'm actively milking in with a buck. And so maybe that's not even really actually true. I've just had enough people tell me that I believe it. And so what I would really like to do is keep WIT close by and try to catch the girls in heat and only just bring him in to have a little date when they're actively open and in heat, instead of putting him in with them and just leaving him there all the time, because a buck and rut is the reason I don't eat stinky goat cheese. I have one food aversion of all food. I mean, I will eat just about anything and it won't bother me. Like, I am not grossed out by food. And I used to love stinky goat cheese. I mean, you know what I'm talking about, kind of funky goat cheese. The goat cheese I make at home is not funky because the milk is so fresh. Any store-bought goat cheese to me tastes like a lick and a hoof. And it is 100% a me issue. I know many people enjoy that flavor. It's a little gamey. After keeping goats for so long, when I taste that, it reminds me of the smell of a buck and rut. And I'm like, that is not food. I'm not putting that in my mouth. So, I really don't want that coming through in my milk. I will be able to taste it. I have an incredibly sensitive sense of smell and palate, which makes me great at cupping coffees, turns out. But I'm going to try to just introduce WIT in on actual heat days to get them bred, and then I can take a note of when I actually saw them bred, and hopefully by doing that kind of know when the babies are expected. If little Dusty dude starts showing an interest in trying to holler at the girls, he's gonna have to go out, because I don't think, he's still so little. Where there's a will, there's a way. Like, if they wanted to let him breed them, even though he's small, it can happen. But with WIT on the other side of the fence, usually female animals will push off like a weaker male if they see a stronger male nearby. Like, they want to breed with the stronger animal, and that's been my experience of breeding animals. Now, things can happen. I mean, goats can get pregnant through a fence. Like, as I said, where there's a will, there's a way. But I have observed for my, 10 years of goat keeping that for the most part, if there's like a little dinky dude hanging out that is young and doesn't know what he's doing, the girls will mostly just kick him away and not even give him a chance. And I wouldn't mind them being bred by him, but I want to keep it simple this year. Basically breeding WIT to everybody. I'm not planning on keeping any of the kids, but if I ended up with one that I absolutely had to have, if I keep a doeling from WIT, then I can breed that doeling to Dusty when the time comes. That's why I wanted some options. It has been quite hot and wet, and I would say our supply of milk has gone down just a touch with that. Honestly, I think a lot of what it is that the goats just stay in the barn. They don't like to be out when it's really hot, and so I don't think they're not grazing as much or not eating as much. They eat the hay that's in the barn, but the big hay bale is outside, and therefore they don't make as much milk. So maybe I need to put some hay in their stall. Either way, I'm getting almost a gallon a day, which is more than I need, so I haven't really tried to troubleshoot it. After after my heavy week of content, which we do have one more sit down and chat video coming, but after my heavy week of content, I kind of got into the slump. You know how you get in a slump on something, like you have a routine or you have a thing, but something throws it off and then you're in a slump. And you have to get out of the slump. And for some reason, that first step out is always like mountainous. It's so hard. And like shooting a video has been in my mind the last few days, like, oh, I got to do this. I don't know what I'm going to say. I don't know what I'm going to do. And I'm overthinking it. I'm making it harder than it is. It's the easiest thing in the world to just hang out with you guys. You're so great. I'm glad I'm over the mountain. Now I can just make simple content. This rooster is side-eyeing me and I don't like it. Don't come at me, bro. Don't do it. Hi, KK.
Ninja video.
Y'all, KK turned 30 last week.
Yep.
Happy birthday, Cake.
Thanks.
Michaela has 8 million nicknames. Like Macackle,
Michaela la la la.
Michaela la la la,
McChocolate cake.
McChocolate Cake. They just keep going on and on.
Someone told me that if you have a bunch of nicknames, it just means you're deeply loved.
There you go. You are kind roosters that love your home here, and I am your friend. Actually, hold on. Hey, friend. Hey, rooster friend, here. Yums. And he's indifferent. Alright, guys. Thanks for hanging out with me today. And all the days you do. I bless you. Until next time.